Hate crimes against Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, a soaring national crisis in the U.S. Turkey holds up Sweden's bid to join NATO over Quran burning. European governments marginalize Muslims with new discourse about political Islam. Indian University bans BBC documentary on PM Modi's role in Gujarat riots. Saudi Arabia appoints 34 women to leadership positions in 2 holy mosques. Halal food market size in the U.S. to grow by $9.33 billion from 2021 to 2026. From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight: hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the U.S. continue to rise in communities across the country. They have prompted the Biden administration to take action. The latest high-profile hate crime took place in Indiana on January 11th. An 18-year-old Indiana University student of Asian descent was stabbed repeatedly in the head on a city bus because of her race. The white suspect, 56-year-old Billy Davis, started stabbing the victim with a folding knife as she exited the bus, according to the criminal complaint. Davis told investigators she stabbed the victim because she was Chinese, authorities said. Davis has been charged with attempted murder, aggravated battery, and battery by means of a deadly weapon. The Indiana chapter of the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum said anti-Asian racism is a soaring national crisis. Hate crimes have intensified with the COVID-19 pandemic and rising U.S.-China tensions, the group said. California is reeling from its third mass shooting in 8 days. The latest is by a man who killed 7 former co-workers south of San Francisco. The attacks took place in the coastal city of Half Moon Bay. The victims were all Chinese-American farm workers. The suspect is 67-year-old Zhao Chun-li, who was arrested after driving to a police station. The state is already mourning the death of 11 people at Monterey Park, southeast of Half Moon Bay, during Chinese Lunar New Year celebrations. And more than a week ago, 6 people, including a teenage mother and baby, were killed in Goshen, south of Los Angeles. New allegations of sexual impropriety by sitting U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Brett Kavanaugh are prompting some to call for a new investigation. A former career prosecutor said there is no reason why the Justice Department couldn't launch a new investigation. Glenn Kirshner criticized the FBI for its poor handling of tips that came in before Kavanaugh was given a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. The revelations came in a new documentary from noted filmmaker Doug Liman. In it, Deborah Ramirez, who never testified during the Senate confirmation hearing, gave a detailed description about her encounter with Kavanaugh while in college. The documentary also claims the FBI failed to reach out to 4,500 people who sent in tips before Kavanaugh's confirmation. It alleges those tips were sent to the Trump-era White House administration. New York City prison authorities say banning physical mail will stem the flow of drugs among prisoners. The Department of Corrections is seeking to stop incarcerated people from receiving physical mail inside city jails. The department said the proposed changes are meant to increase safety in the jail system by cracking down on illegal contraband. The move comes in the wake of the deaths of 19 people last year at Rikers Island, the city's jail complex. Several people died from apparent drug overdoses, including at least one from fentanyl. But critics say the main source of contraband inside city jails has been corrections employees. They warn that the move to scrap physical mail opens the door to private firms to set up surveillance systems against detainees. Mac Abu Zunaid moved to Trumbull, Connecticut in 2018 for the local school district. Abu Zunaid is among several Muslims at a recent Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Task Force meeting asking the local school district to declare Eid-ul-Fitr a holiday. While the school district allows days off for Christian and Jewish holy days, it does not observe any Muslim ones. Abu Zunaid and other parents want their children to be given Eid off for religious reasons. Hossam Afifi, a fellow Trumbull resident, said the district has not been receptive to their requests over the last few years. Trumbull Public School Superintendent Martin Semmel said the district has a calendar committee which takes community suggestions into account. The state mandates the district have a minimum of 180 school days. Semmel said there are also state and federal holiday requirements that need to be considered. Nearby towns such as Bridgeport and Fairfield have already made Eid al-Fitr a holiday. The U.S. halal food market is estimated to increase by $9.33 billion between 2021 and 2026. That's according to a report by the London-based marketing research company Technavio. The company found that the halal food market in the U.S. is fragmented. Key players are adopting organic and inorganic growth strategies to remain competitive. That includes the expansion of production plants and new product launches to increase productivity and strengthen market position. The market growth in the halal meat, poultry, and seafood segment is expected to be significant. That is mainly driven by growing awareness about the benefits of halal meats. Increased demand for halal convenience foods is another major trend in the market. However, kosher foods present a major challenge. While halal foods are more popular than kosher foods globally, in the U.S., kosher foods are more established and popular due to their stringent dietary regulations. Turkey holds up Sweden's bid to join NATO over Quran burning. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. The United States said a far-right Swedish-Danish activist's repugnant burning of the Quran may have been sabotage against unity in NATO. On Saturday, Rasmus Paludan torched the Islamic scripture in front of the Turkish embassy in the Swedish capital, Stockholm. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was furious over the act and at Sweden for allowing it to take place. Turkey has held up Sweden's membership bid in NATO as a result. Under the rules of the Transatlantic Alliance, all members must approve new members. Turkey has been part of NATO since 1952. Sweden applied last year to enter the Western Alliance. U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said the burning was the work of a provocateur who may have deliberately sought to put distance between two close partners of ours, Turkey and Sweden. Talk of battling political Islam in Europe has left Muslim communities in Austria, Germany, and France in the crosshairs. Muslims' rights are being curtailed through measures against what is called political Islam in Austria, legalistic Islamism in Germany, and Islamic separatism in France. Farid Hafiz, a political scientist at Georgetown University in the U.S., said these notions are variations of one and the same concept. Hafiz said Muslims are marginalized and criminalized with this new language. He argued the concept of opposing political Islam is based on disintegrating independently organized Muslim civil society. Hafiz said authorities in these European countries avoid speaking out directly against Islam and focus on what they call political Islam to circumvent violating religious freedom. Pakistan's Islamabad High Court on Friday instructed the Foreign Office to meet and provide legal assistance to Dr. Fawzia Siddiqui. She is a sister of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. Aafia Siddiqui is serving an 86-year prison sentence in the U.S. after being convicted in 2010 for attempting to shoot U.S. military officers while detained in Afghanistan in 2008. Justice Sardar Ejaz Ishaq Khan heard the petition filed by Fawzia Siddiqui to urge the government to take measures for her sister's release. The Attorney General informed the court the matter had been taken up, and diplomatic and government officials held a meeting with the U.S. ambassador. The judge said there have been 7 or 8 hearings of the case, but nothing had been done. The court instructed the Foreign Office to provide legal assistance to the petitioner and meet with her next week. The case was adjourned until March 17th. Saudi Arabia has appointed 34 women to leadership positions at Islam's 2 holiest sites in Mecca and Medina. The country's General Presidency for the Affairs of the 2 Mosques said the appointments are part of the changes the kingdom is seeking for qualified Saudi women to serve female visitors to the Great Mosque of Mecca and the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. In August 2021, the kingdom appointed 2 women as assistants to the head of the General Presidency for the affairs of the 2 holy mosques. Earlier this month, Saudi Arabia appointed 32 women as drivers in the Haramain Express Train Leaders program. A leading Indian university has banned the on-campus screening of a BBC documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's role in the 2002 Gujarat riots. Students at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi had planned to screen India, the Modi question, on Tuesday, but Reuters reports that the school cut off the power and internet supply on campus before that. Indian authorities have banned the documentary from showing in India. Critics have decried the move as an assault on press freedom. The film is critical of Modi's alleged role in deadly riots more than 20 years ago, in which over 2,000 people were killed, mostly Muslim. The documentary, based on a new investigation, shares how Modi aided and abetted the rapes, killings, and violence 2 decades ago. He was banned from entering the U.S. for 10 years because of his handling of the pogroms while he served as Gujarat's chief minister. Taliban authorities have detained 5 men, including 2 Chinese nationals, for trying to smuggle roughly 1,000 metric tons of lithium-bearing rocks out of Afghanistan. The country reportedly has an estimated $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals, including huge deposits of lithium. The arrests and the seizure were made in the eastern Afghan border city of Jalalabad. The Chinese nationals and their Afghan collaborators were planning to illegally transport the rocks to China via Pakistan, Taliban intelligence officials said. Mohammad Rasul Aqab, a senior official at the Afghan Ministry of Mines and Petroleum, estimated the rocks contained up to 30% of lithium. They were secretly extracted from Nuristan and Kunar, among the Afghan provinces along the border with Pakistan. The Taliban has banned the extraction and sale of lithium since reclaiming power in August 2021 after the withdrawal of U.S. and NATO troops. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. It's time for our in-depth analysis segment. Let's watch.
Thank you, Samana. Republican Governor DeSantis of Florida is fighting history. People who fight history become history themselves. But he seems to be rising. He's rejecting a course, calling it a left-wing ideology, and it's about African American history. Can people eliminate slavery and what happened to African American in America? I don't think so. We have a guest, Dr. Marvin Dunn. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Marvin.
Thank you. Very glad to be here.
Dr. Dunn is a former naval officer and professor emeritus of the Department of Psychology at Florida International University. So, Professor Dunn, tell me what Dantes is afraid of.
Oh, the truth. He is afraid of the brutal, bloody, oppressive, racial history of Florida. He is afraid that if these stories become common knowledge in Florida, that it could damage the state's reputation. He's afraid that sooner or later blacks may be coming forward asking for reparations for these events. So the less said about these things, the better as far as the government is concerned. So Florida is now receding into the 1950s, where even black history is now up for dispute.
I mean, do Republicans want to write history about blacks?
Does he want to rewrite that history?
Yeah.
Is that
I
your
mean,
question?
are they
Listen,
funding and
that's a
commissioning
good
to
question.
rewrite the thing?
Well, he wants to de-racialize history. For example, if the governor had his way, slavery in Florida would be taught this way. Some Africans came over and worked free for a while, and that was it. No racial reference to enslavement, exploitation, brutalization, sexual abuse. All of that is wiped clean in Florida's record as far as the government is concerned. And we can't talk about those things lest in Florida a teacher could get arrested. For example, right now, if a teacher took a copy of my book, A History of Florida Through Black Eyes, into her classroom, she could be arrested, or he could be arrested and charged with a felony for taking a book into a classroom that was not approved by the media specialist. So now in Florida, teachers are taking out their personal books they brought in and used for years to teach their students, taking them home for fear of being charged with a felony. This is Florida today.
Keeping a book is a felony?
I'm sorry?
Keeping a book is a felony in Florida?
Taking the book into a school is a felony unless that book has been approved by the school librarian, who is under the thumb of the school principal, who knows what the state wants and does not want in classrooms. So you think the media specialist or librarian would be open to whatever book a teacher has that she or he wants to use that they've been using for years to teach history? No, that person is going to obey the law, not have literature in her classroom that has not been approved by the state. And that's very, very frightening. This is how Stalin did it. It's how Hitler did it. It's how Castro did it. You eliminate or reduce the amount of information or truth that's available in the society. You capture the children in your own educational system and brainwash them into believing your own beliefs. And liberals, intellectuals become the enemy. The college professionals in this state are now under threat. The governor wants to take away tenure, for example. The professors can no longer count on being tenured at a university in Florida. That's the backbone of academia that he's breaking. So the level of intrusion into the classroom, into the educational process that this man is perpetrating is unprecedented. Unprecedented.
So, Professor Dunn, don't you think it's unconstitutional
To what?
to stop bringing a book and teaching a class and a course teaching about the history of our nation?
That is an excellent question because the case that I'm involved in, which is challenging the governor in the Woke Act, is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it will be decided there. That court will decide whether a politician can tell a university professor what he or she can teach in their classes. That's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, given the constant makeup of the court, I wouldn't want to begin to guess how that could come down.
Well, you started a tour about Teach the Truth. Do you think a tour will compensate for what people will miss in the classroom?
Well, no, because I could only at best take a few hundred students on a tour of Florida's racial history to some of the places where the worst things have happened. But they bring their cameras and they have their TikTok accounts and their Instagram accounts. And when they go places, when we went on that tour a couple of weeks ago, they were sending pictures all over the world. That's how the stories get passed down to this current generation. They don't need to go to a classroom to understand what happened in Rosewood. Go on and go Google it. That's I'm so glad you mentioned this because you can no longer contain education by saying what goes on in the classroom is what you'll learn. Because now with the internet and access to information, you can't restrain learning anymore. You can insert politics to try to control the people who are responsible for teaching or administering schools, but you can't contain information anymore, not in this day and age.
So, Professor Dunn, share with us what this tour Teach the Truth does, and how many places does it take, and what people eventually learn.
Well, we've only done one so far. We will be doing others. We did one in January, earlier this month, and that tour went to three places. It went to Mims, Florida, where in 1951, Harry T. Moore and his wife, he was a civil rights leader, was killed when a bomb went off set by the Klan beneath their home. He was the most courageous person who ever walked in Florida, Harry T. Moore. There's a museum there now named for him and his wife. We also took the kids to Newberry, Florida, which is in central Florida. The largest lynching that we know of in Florida history took place in Newberry in 1916 when they lynched about 8 people at one time. So we took the tour to the cemetery where most of these victims are buried. We told their stories. We met with a local historian who knows the story much better than I. And then we took them to Rosewood. Now, all of this is paid for by our nonprofit, the Miami Center for Racial Justice, paid all the expenses for this tour. And the tour consisted of high school students, and they had to bring a parent or a grandparent with them because we wanted these lessons to be passed down intergenerationally. So we then went to Rosewood. That's Saturday night. And the next morning, Sunday, the bus took the students out to my property in Rosewood for the celebration, but recognition, not celebration, of the 100 years since the massacre took place in 1923. And there were hundreds of people out there who came out for that event.
Are you finding people of different ethnicity participate in this tour?
It's required that the participants be diverse. I wouldn't want to just take Black kids up there. or white kids. We need to have these experiences shared across ethnic and racial groups. So the work that I'm doing in these tours will always involve a diverse group of students to make the tour. And we'll be doing another one probably in February to other sites that have seen bloody racial violence. And we may also end up in Tallahassee at the Capitol, at the governor's house.
I read somewhere that this teaching AP course on African American history actually is a requirement in Florida. Is that true?
Yes, it is a requirement, but the way that the law is structured, you can't teach anything in history that might make the students feel uncomfortable. How do you teach about slavery or the Holocaust and have students not? I hope they feel uncomfortable. I'd be very concerned if they were very comfortable listening to babies being burned in ovens or being snatched away from their mothers and sold off in slavery. So what DeSantis is saying is you can teach the facts, but you can't express feelings. You can't tell the students what your feelings are, your impressions are about these events, about slavery, about the Holocaust, about the taking of lands from the Native Americans. A teacher can't tell the students what you think, what you feel, your impression. Right, I'm old enough to tell you that I sat on the back of the bus as a child. That hurt. I can't tell my students that experience happened to me. So we're talking about the sterilization of American history, of Black history in particular, in Florida. And if DeSantis becomes president, the same thing's going to happen across the country.
Well, we have Black History Month coming up, and we will be focusing especially so people who are listening, people who are watching outside the classroom, take the message to their classroom. I don't think any DeSantis can desanitize the history. This is going to be there. Thank you so much, Professor Dunn.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Back to you, Samana.
Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.